There are what could be described as significant developments now in this George Zimmerman murder trial. Moments ago, one of the prosecution's key witnesses testified about what he saw and heard the night Trayvon Martin died. Now, the state attorney's playing his 911 call. The gentleman's name is John Good. You'll hear from him in a moment. That he placed to police that night in February, more than a year ago. Listen here.
However many there were. Okay. And the person on the bottom was laying flat?
Correct.
Could you tell if he was on his back or not?
He was on his back.
He was on his back. At this point, what's the person on the back wearing? I'm sorry, the person on the top whose back you can see wearing?
It was the same person that was on the top when they were T-shaped to the sidewalk.
Okay, so they did
dark
not.
Colors.
I'm sorry. They did not change positions, did they?
No. I didn't state the entire thing was 2 seconds. No.
Let's do that then. The entire time that you were actually watching what was going on?
8 to 10 seconds.
8 to 10 seconds.
Yes.
And that's when you had your focus specifically on what turned out to be, as we now know, Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, right?
Correct.
You didn't know it then, but now we know who they were.
Yes.
So 8 to 10 seconds you were watching them do whatever was happening?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Like, there was only one person. Then I could see a second person, and it looked more of just a tussle. And that's when I thought it got serious, when it moved up to the sidewalk and he was more in a straddle position and arm movements were going downward. But I couldn't 100% say those were actually strikes or if they were just arm movement going downward. As soon as I saw the movement going downward, that's when I turned around and went back inside.
That's when you knew it was very serious?
Yes. It looked like it was getting serious and it wasn't just someone playing around.
And that's when you can hear George Zimmerman screaming for help, right?
Incorrect.
What was it? When was it?
That was in the beginning when I finally saw someone under the person on top.
Wow, is John Good still on the stand right now? We'll play that 911 call in a moment. Steve Kardian is a former New York City chief investigator, former New York police sergeant, the director of defenduniversity.com. Annemarie McAvoy, former federal prosecutor, with us just 45 minutes ago. You went off to the green room to listen to more. I want to begin with you because you are a prosecutor. What did John Good do to this case in the last 45 minutes?
Well, this was devastating for the prosecution. He came straight out and said that the person wearing the black or in the dark outfit was on top the entire time. He saw them on the grass. He then saw them on the sidewalk, same person on top, and that's Trayvon Martin. So, and then he describes the position that Trayvon Martin is on top of Zimmerman in a position that could be very deadly to him. And he sees downward motion from the person on top, who now we know is Trayvon Martin. And he also says that he hears somebody crying for help, and that although he says it's not when they're on the sidewalk, he said it's the person who was originally on the bottom, and he says that remains Zimmerman both on the sidewalk and in the grass.
So he testified under cross-examination that the cries for help that he heard were from George Zimmerman.
Right. It's not completely clear yet. I think that my guess is the cross will pull that out a little bit more. But he says it's the person who was initially, when he first saw them in the grass, it's the person who was on bottom, and that's the same person he says was on the bottom all the time. Let
me bring in Steve, because you have this defenduniversity.com website. This is your business.
Yes.
What did you take away from this testimony?
Well, Bill, I'm an early American Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt. They wrote the book on this position. I also teach it to law enforcement. When Trayvon was mounted on top of him, raining down blows, it's virtually indefensible. He can reach Zimmerman. Zimmerman can't reach him. And the blows, because his head is on the ground, he can't absorb. In other words, a boxer would absorb it. He's not able, and it causes a lot of
So this witness described this hold?
He did.
How would he know about it?
Watching MMA. He referred to it as an MMA position, which he likely saw in the UFC.
And what is that position? You get on top, you hold his arms down, what do you do?
No, you don't have to hold his arms down. You're straddled on his hips. He can't move. He's pinned. You rain down blows. He has that rotational direction that he could force those blows, and you could cause a lot of damage. Again, you can't absorb it. Your head is stuck, and the damage is being caused between here and here. There's no way for the head to go.
So remember now, you've got this piece of evidence that will come in at some point from the defense that will show what the wounds on the back of George Zimmerman's head. And did he have a broken nose? Is that confirmed?
I believe that he had a broken nose. The injuries that he displayed with the facial injuries and the head injuries would be consistent with either ground and pound, like we explained, or banging the head on the ground. But the frontal injuries are definitely blows being rained down.
What's interesting about that is during the opening statement, Zimmerman's attorneys went to great length to tell the jurors that, he worked out in a gym some time ago, but wasn't a very good athlete. How does that come back now?
I look at him as a 30-year police officer, 35-year martial artist, and I see a soft man, a soft person, not very tough, not very physical at all.
Annemarie, we mentioned 45 minutes ago there was not a whole lot of evidence in this case. And the case comes down to the people the state's putting on the stand. You can't pick and choose your own witnesses. They are who they are.
No.
How did this one do?
Well, he was a better witness for the defense than the prosecution. Again, perhaps the prosecution, I mean, they have more witnesses they plan to call. They may rehabilitate the witness. He's going to have redirect, so they're going to have a second chance at him. But he's been very clear on what he saw.
You're a prosecutor, right? You know, because you've talked to this guy. You've taken his deposition. You know what he's going to say. Are you prepared for this?
You know, there are times when you can talk to a witness and you don't know exactly what they're going to say when they get on the stand. They sometimes say something different on the stand than what they told you in prior meetings. That can happen. I don't know if that happened here. If not, you know, they're laying out what happened that night, what the witnesses saw. They have to lay out the chronology, where things happened. This witness was able to say they were on the grass and then on the sidewalk. They also can still potentially show, you know, that Zimmerman was the instigator and Zimmerman created the situation purposefully. So, you know,
the state could always come back.
The
state could come back on that point.
The story's not finished yet.
Okay, Annemarie McAvoy, thanks. And Steve Kardian, thanks to you as well.
Thank you.
A bit more now with Martha.
All right, let's bring in Florida criminal defense attorney Mike Gottlieb. Mike, you've been listening to this. We've been watching John Good's testimony here. You've heard from our attorneys in studio that they believe that this testimony was very good for the defense, that it clearly puts Trayvon Martin in the position of being the person on top. How do you read it?
Well, I agree 100%, and to use a borrow phrase from Mr. Good, I think that this witness dealt a ground and pound to the state's case. I mean, he clearly puts at all points in time that he's viewing the fight that Trayvon Martin is on top of George Zimmerman. He says from the angle that he heard the cries for help, it was clearly Zimmerman who's on the bottom who's crying for help. I think it's a devastating blow to the state's case at this point in time.
So there will be cross, because a lot of what we heard from him earlier was that from this testimony and this witness was that it was very dark, that it was hard to see what was going on, and he's been very careful as a witness, and as I think most people can respect, to tell only what he really feels he saw and heard, and nothing more than that. He doesn't seem to be adding to it, you know, or embellishing on it in any way. He's a very straight witness.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think he's a reluctant witness. I think he's shown that he doesn't want to be here, and I think he's being very careful about the words that he's choosing. At the same point in time, I don't think that they're going to be able to cross-examine him. He's saying what he saw, and only what he saw, with no embellishment. So whether it's dark or not, he really hasn't changed his story. I think he's unflappable, and he's a fantastic witness for Zimmerman.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Gottlieb. Good to have you with us.